Introducing the most powerful formula you have never used. It's a modern Excel formula called Lambda. What it allows you to create is your own functions based on your particular calculation. But here's the kicker. It's got no coding, no VBA. You just simply create it with Lambda. If that sounds like something you're into, stick around. We're going to go through two examples. Very simple one and one with a bit more punch to it. So let's get going, shall we? The Lambda function was such a revelation when it first came out, and then was generally available in 2022 and beyond. Now, it allows you to create from a formula an inbuilt function. So it works with you in two ways, in that you don't have to keep recreating that formula. It might be quite complex, it might be simple, but you create it once and you name it, and it's available to you in your workbook. The other thing is, if you change or modify the formula for a new reason, a change of interest rate or a change of one of your inputs to that formula, it will reflect that change throughout the sheet. So those two things alone can save you an enormous amount of time and give you one thing which I always crave from people I teach about spreadsheeting, and that is to ensure it's accurate. The accuracy of your spreadsheet can be the thing that makes or breaks you in your workplace. If some huge mistake occurs, it can be devastating. So accuracy is a super consideration when spreadsheeting. Now, having said all that, let's have a look at Lambda and what it requires. Now, it can be quite a few parameters or calculations or component parts, I should say, to the function. Equals Lambda requires a parameter. Now, a parameter is simply something you input into a formula. So that could be a number, an interest rate, some sort of fractional calculation, something. Now, that parameter, in this case, we're calling our parameter x, just to have a name for it, and then y. So we've got two. And then a third component in this formula will be to add those two things together. Now, it's only when you start to use the function that you create that this can actually gel as to what's going on. So I'll keep going. So to break it down again, x is a parameter, y is a parameter, and the last component, x plus y, is the calculation we want to create from the two inputs that we have. So the x and y, doesn't matter what they're called. Probably don't use an existing function name, but it's just x and y. So I don't want it to be too algebraic in your mind. We'll see that with our next example. It can be a lot more obvious what we're doing. Now, how do we create this? Well, we've got the function here, equals lambda x and y. And if I just simply take that out and enter, if you enter the calculation with the function lambda, you'll see this calc error happen. Now that's because it's got nothing to work off. So I'm just simply going to copy that, and then I'll be able to use that in its place where it's going to go right now. So let's go up to the Formulas tab and Name Manager. Now you may have used Name Manager for other reasons. This one is to create our function from our Lambda calculation. So let's go new, and the name we're going to give this, I'm going to call it Lambda, because we're adding two things together. Now we can use that for our workbook, and we can write a little comment around it to say what it actually does. Adds together X and Y. Okay, and let's refer that to what we just copied. So I'll paste that in now. So it refers to Lambda X and Y parameters that we add together in the calculation X plus Y. Hit OK, and now it's been added to the name manager, which I'm going to close. Now note the name, that's going to be very important. So let's close that off, because you've just created, if you've been following along, your own function. So let's enter one in here, shall we? So we go equals lamb, and there it is. It pops up as an object, just like all these other bits and pieces. So let's choose lamb add, and you'll notice when I was hovering over it, that description popped up. So it's a good little reminder what we're doing. So let's put in our parameters. So it's going to be this and this, and close the bracket, enter it in. What does it do? Adds them together. But what does it add together? 1 plus 2. So that becomes 3. We can copy it down just like we can for any other formula. 3 plus 4 equals 7. 10 plus 12 equals 22. 120 plus 54 equals 174. So that function we just created called lamAdd simply does this, adds two things together. Wonderful. Now, that's a simple formula, but a formula can be as complex as you need it to be. Now, let's have a look at another version of creating a Lambda formula in using it for a retail shop creating discounts. Here we are on that page now, and the formula's suddenly got a bit more complex, but it's only as complex as it looks to the uninitiated. So let's initiate you, shall we? So it's all about the component part. So quantity is just us stating up front the parameter name, quantity. Price, once again, is a parameter, price and quantity, which ultimately we're going to multiply. Now the formula, it's an if statement, because here's what we want. If people buy 50 or more of these items, they get 10% off. And that's off the total bill. So let's look at this formula. If quantity is greater than or equal to 50, then quantity multiplied by price multiplied by 0.1, 10%. If that is not the case, if the quantity is not greater than or equal to 50, 0. So we're not going to give them a discount. Must be 50 or more. Now, wrapped around that formula, we could end up with a whole heap of decimal places. So we're going to round the formula to 2 decimals. And that's what we see here in the calculation part. Round the if statement to 2 decimal places. And therefore round has an open bracket or parentheses. So we need to close that, and then we close the lambda. So that's the formula broken down. The quantity and the price are the two parameters. The formula we're using for our function is rounded if the quantity is greater than or equal to 50. We're multiplying quantity times price times 0.1 for 10%, otherwise 0. So when you multiply that out, they won't get a discount. So let's have a look at this one in play. So once again, I'm going to remove that little quote mark. And when we hit enter, we get that calc. So that doesn't mean we've made a mistake in this case. And Control C to copy. And let's add that to the name manager. So it's a new summer discount for our workbook. Comment will be apply discount of 10% to over or equals 50. And let's paste in our Lambda function here. Control V, click OK, and there it is. Summer discount. And that looks all good. Click close, and let's apply that in here. Now, in our table, here's our quantity, here's our price, and our net price, which will be, because it's in a table, will be the quantity times the price less the discount. Okay, so let's have a look and see what we get when we apply equals summer discounts. And that will be quantity, comma, price, enter, and it works it out for us. Because it's in a table, it's taken the whole data down the table, and once we get 50 or over, you can see that they get the discount. Let's change one of these in the middle here. Let's make that 55. Discount, yay! So there's our summer discount working for us quite nicely. And I hope that you have enjoyed seeing how you can create your own function. Enjoy and have a good play with this one, because I'm sure that you have an application of a formula that you create quite often, and you can apply it over and over again in that spreadsheet. Thanks for staying with us, and if you love that, I hope you will give me a like, and I'd love you also to subscribe so you can get notice of my next video, and that's where I'll see you in the next one.